So, today I want to talk about barriers versus boundaries. And I want to put this in context of some of the young women who I speak with and have listened to who have gone on a detransition journey. They talk about their experiences often of why they came to trans ideation as being a rejection of the trauma that they experienced. Some experienced literal sexual trauma and abuse. Some were uncomfortable with a hypersexualized culture with unrealistic beauty standards for women, being exposed to pornified images at an early age, and seeing images of sex as a dehumanizing act. And this rejection led them to do many things, but on that path to trans ideation, many of them exhibited other symptoms: anorexia, cutting, bulimia, other instances of self-harm. And we can see this in some of the images online of young women who post their top surgery pictures. We often see top surgery pictures with self-harm already in them. So I am making the link that the self-harm of top surgery is related to other forms of self-harm that are a rejection of these sexist pressures that young girls face. In the book Reviving Ophelia, this was written in the 90s. This is pretty much what this book is about: saving the selves of our adolescent girls. And Mary Piper talks about this in her book of why she was seeing so many instances of anorexia, bulimia, and self-harm. And there is a little quote that she says about, if I can get to it, about self-harm, where she talks about self-mutilization as an interpretation of our culture's injunction on young women to cut themselves into socially acceptable pieces. And this self-harm is a reaction to that. And in the instance of trans ideation, I've heard from specifically a young woman who talked about wanting to cut off her breasts so that men would not touch them any longer. So this is often an attempt to put up a barrier, but a barrier is not a boundary. So, to explain to you the difference between a barrier and a boundary, I want to give you this metaphor. It's the metaphor of the empty house. And in this metaphor, there is a house at the end of the block, and it's an abandoned house, but there is a giant chain link fence all around the property. It has barbed wire weaving at the top. And yet, despite this barrier, you can see that drug dealers have broken into the house to do their deals there. Kids have broken in to have parties there. Bottles have been thrown through the window. Litter is scattered over the yard. People let their dogs take a dump in front of the yard. And even though there is a giant fence with barbed wire around the house, everyone can see that the house is abandoned and they screw with it. Just down the block, there is another house. It has no fence, but in the yard, there is grass, there are lights on inside the house, there's smoke coming out of the chimney, there's beautiful cooking smells coming out of the house, and no one breaks into the house, no one has their parties there, no one throws bottles through the window, no one lets their dog take a dump on their lawn, because everyone can see that the house is fully occupied. So this is what it is to have a boundary. We can only have appropriate boundaries when we are fully embodied, when we are fully in ourselves, when we are in a state of dissociation. We can only put up barriers. We can't have real boundaries. So it's a vulnerable state. Barriers are not effective at doing the job of creating a boundary. A boundary is space that we claim, space that we occupy. A barrier is when we are dissociated and we don't want anyone to come near us. But a boundary is something that we are in control of, we can manage. Boundaries claim territory and set limits, but invite participation. Barriers set up obstacles that block intimacy and block connection. In the book Predators, Who They Are, How They Operate, and How We Can Protect Our Children, Anna Salter talks about how the predator picks his victim. Predators are very attuned to looking for the difference between barriers and boundaries, and barriers signal. They signal to predators where vulnerability lays. Barriers are like the fence around the abandoned house. They are a signal saying, this house is abandoned. I do not occupy myself. I am vulnerable territory. Trans ideation is a problem for those who are experiencing it. It normalizes dissociation. It is, when taken on, a forever dissociation from one's physical circumstances, from one's embodiment. One is always running away from one's body, trying to mask the reality of one's body, to be on lifelong endocrine disrupting hormones is to be dissociating from your body, denying who and what your body is forever. This is a vulnerable position to continue to put yourself in. I'm going to leave this here for now. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And if you want to know more about my work, please go to my Substack, www.theknownheretic.com. Thank you so much.